and welcome back to Rage Gaming. We're about to drop into Nightreign, and with that, an important topic should be considered. Nightreign is expected to be hard, and is actually expected to be hardest at the start, at launch, because not only with time will you get comfortable with the game mechanics, the routes you might want to take first, how the loot works, how the bosses work, what items are good, all that stuff, but you're also going to literally gain in power. By completing expeditions, you'll gather relics. You'll get relics that have more and more relevance to the playstyle and build you're looking for, and then you'll get better relics for that purpose in the future. These things will be continuous progress in the way that a roguelike gives you ways to make the game easier and you get stronger. So initially, you should expect it to be the hardest it's ever going to be. That was obviously backed up by the experienced team still failing runs during the recent Red Bull event that happened. The very fact that the final boss, the nightlord that you're going to challenge, you first have to defeat 2 days and 2 nights, multiple bosses, all that, before you ever fight the thing. In a Souls game, we spawn basically at the boss door and try again. This has a bigger wall between it. So with that in mind, what are the likely best, easiest, most powerful characters that also have that lowest skill floor at the same time, so they're easier to learn and apply, and just focus on actually learning the game, progressing it, getting the powers in those first few days. So let's get started. Right off the bat, the all-rounder wylder is going to be probably the most reliable, most obvious option for a solo player, but also in group play. Like, you could happily run a 3 wylder group thanks to the ultimate and how effective that actually can be. A main aspect of this though is the simplicity of the kit and the main passive. You're going to have a shield which will allow for blocking and parrying to a basic level. You'll have a greatsword with decent range and damage to start with, and your passive, Sixth Sense, basically means 1 free death ignore. So as you take a killing blow that would normally bring you down, you just ignore it. Which is obviously going to be insane when you're learning the game, when you're progressing the day and nights initially, when you're learning the new enemies and boss movesets that you just don't know initially. Having that extra bit of buffer is going to be really good. And again, especially in single player. Don't forget that this passive, when consumed when you take that killing blow, fully resets after using a grace. So you'll regularly be able to proc it and restore it and hopefully never go down. Now it also comes with the claw shot skill and the onslaught stake. The claw shot allows you to, say, pull an enemy out from a pack of enemies to destroy it quickly. You can also use that claw shot to pull yourself around. So you could pull yourself away from a pack of enemies or a tight spot or just a bad moment, even using that effect to dodge attacks during a boss fight. Say big AoEs you want to range. Then you've got the ultimate onslaught stake, which is comically strong for a burst hit, but importantly here, it has protection during its animation. You could absolutely use it to dodge enemy attacks that you're not sure about, like a big nasty one that you know is going to be hard to dodge, or if you don't know what the hell's going on, you can just throw it out. So for single player, that's the class that I would strongly recommend to you, and in general, I'd recommend to you. The second class I want to recommend to you for learning is actually ironeye, basically the ranger, the bow user. Now, I thought that there could be a lot of potential in this class in group play, but from the Red Bull event, man, that was proven to be true. He's essentially just free DPS, the poise break skill's unbelievable for group killing a target. The most successes I saw in the Red Bull event were because the ironeye was in the group, and it was heavily because of that poise break effect. But there's more to it than that. For example, he's got the passive, right? Eagle Eye. That increases the drops, which will in itself pay 10x times for the duration of many runs, basically making you stronger sooner, giving you more options to consider, and hey, for learning the game, you'll get different items more often, which is going to be a big deal. So that's great too, but obviously the main thing here is marking the skill, which is that busted poise break. Essentially, you mark a target, let's say a mini boss or a full-on boss, and its poise is greatly reduced. Now you and your allies, every time you hit this target, it's much more likely to cause a mini stagger, an interruption, stopping it from doing whatever it was going to do. The difference that makes in a fight in Elden Ring is absolutely colossal. And if you're able to interrupt it with quick attacks, say there's 3 of you hitting it at once so that it can't even do anything, this is just free, safe DPS in a situation where that's just normally not the case. Then also obviously it will cause many staggers, which leads to a nice big burst of damage and an opportunity for your allies to maybe recover some FP, heal up, while whoever's doing the critical is doing that animation. Also, yes, the ultimate single shot is going to be good with its big burst, or probably great AoE if you place it well right. But I just think the biggest part of this is Eagle Eye the passive, the marking poise break, and then also just the nature of using a ranged attack that's going to mean free DPS with the correct play in a team. This could be quite the interesting, rewarding, but challenging class to run in solo. But in team play, like I said from what I saw in the Red Bull event, this was the key reason why it went so well for some teams. And I'd strongly recommend you have at least one in your team while learning the game. The third and last and probably lowest skill floor option that you have for learning the game is of course Guardian. Time and time again from all of the footage I've seen, and again especially that Red Bull event, I saw a lot of Guardian play for the inexperienced players. This class has the biggest health pool initially out of all of them, so you're going to be able to get hit by many hits and walk away, which would kill others, especially certain others we're going to mention in a sec. It also comes with a great shield, a huge shield that's going to be reliable for blocking, mostly because of the passive Steel Guard. It reduces the impact of hits massively, meaning you just block instead of dodging, which is obviously a lot easier because you don't have to time the roll, you just hold the block and take the block. This is going to be great for holding aggression of the enemies really well, and that's particularly relevant for the Nightlords where you don't know the fight, there's a lot on the line, you progress 2 days, 2 nights to get here, you don't just want to die. So instead of getting crushed because you mistimed a roll or maybe a parry, you just use this block and even the Steel Guard to tank the hits. When dealing with a Nightlord and the bigger bosses the first time, I strongly advise watching the fight, paying attention to the movesets, looking for those windows of opportunities. There's going to be too much on the line to blindly try to get free DPS and then get hit. Now, there is of course the skill for the Guardian Whirlwind, which I'm not massively convinced by. Basically, you send out a whirlwind, it deflects projectiles, which is nice, and it can cause mini staggers against weak enemies. You can also charge it up to have an increased duration, but from what I've seen of this, it's not that amazing. It definitely could be more effective with the right relic mods, but I've not been that convinced by it. I'm much more interested by the ultimate skill, Wings of Salvation, which is essentially the best AoE res that's in the game. It's going to be huge for saving a full wipe situation, say against a Nightlord. So this one, you want to time correctly. You don't want to use it early into a fight. It's going to do this big circle AoE that's going to restore all downed allies. So maybe midway through the fight when things are getting a bit hairy and more difficult, that's when I'd slam this down, and it could be a real game changer for saving a run later to Nightlord. So it's definitely not going to be your biggest damage dealer or the highest skill class by far, but it will be one of the most forgiving and best to learn the game with. So those are my 3 suggestions. I really do recommend that you go into it with that perspective of learning initially, because it's going to get easier as you go. There are a couple classes that have really high skill ceilings and a ton of potential that could be meta and absolutely destructive when played well, when fully understood. And there's 2 that I want to call out and explain for that purpose. Firstly, I want to talk about the Executor, which has been largely revealed now thanks to a couple trailers and that recent Red Bull event where we finally saw some proper gameplay. This is the class that's going to be ridiculously strong when in the hands of a very skillful player because it requires parry timing to maximize. So it's a super dex and arcane focused class. Bleeds and status and those kind of things are going to be great here. The preference weapon is katana, but you can use other dex focused weapons of which there's going to be many, and this is going to be a top class for that purpose. But the whole time you're going to be swapping off whatever weapon you're picking up to your cursed sword. So quickly, the passive. It's called Tenacity. It gives you a boost while recovering from status ailments, so a nice boost there, barely relevant. What we care about here is the ultimate and the skill. So, the Cursed Sword skill has a lot to it. You activate a special stance where you pull out the Cursed Sword, and essentially it's in an uncharged or charged state. You can use it like a regular sword, like light attack combos, heavy attacks, that kind of thing, but when wielding it, you can press L1 to deflect or L2 to use the skill. The deflects require Sekiro-style parry timings, as we imagine from the footage leading up to these bigger reveals. So this is where that huge amount of skill and understanding of the enemy that you're facing comes into play. You will actually be able to deflect most attacks in the game, but colossal style hits from huge bosses we've seen from that Red Bull footage do actually cause the class to kind of fall back, but you can at least mitigate the attack through parrying rather than rolling. Anyway, when you deflect enough attacks, like a bunch of light attacks and combo, whatever, the Cursed Sword begins to transform and glow like a holy buff. So while charged up, you can do this special dash strike, which is really strong, but obviously expends the power. The problem here is that the skill floor is going to be much higher for this class because you're wasting the character if you're not constantly engaging with the Cursed Sword whenever possible. You'd just be better off playing something else. But then we have the ultimate skill. We actually get a bit more information about this from the Red Bull gameplay, where they show it but didn't use all of its effects. Anyway, you press the ultimate and transform into this large wolf beast, gaining a big health boost for its duration. It lasts a good while, over 10 seconds from what I could see, and there's a bunch of different attack options. You've got a light, heavy, L2, so light attack combo, a slam heavy, and then the holy blade thrust that we've seen in the trailers. L2 is what you use to use the raw based on the descriptions, but we didn't ever get to see any footage of that. There's also some light sprinting and dodging as options while in this form, which looks pretty funny, but it definitely matters because you still want to avoid dying while in this form. So I just wanted to highlight the executor as one that I think looks really ridiculously strong, but requires a really high skill floor to match that high skill ceiling. And it's one to think about whether you're going to learn the game while playing this class or avoid it. On the other hand, you have the spellcaster, which is mechanically a lot more complicated to learn, but, you know, a lot easier to play at a baseline compared to the last one. So the big issue with Recluse is that it has this incredible skill, the magic cocktail, based on your passive elemental defense. You're going to collect elements around you and store them and then unleash them in a special effect. There is a huge list of potential options because you're collecting ice, fire, lightning, and holy, and then depending on the combination of the last three that you've stored and used, on the fourth cast of the magic cocktail, you get a special effect. So understanding all the possible combos in the context of what you're dealing with, what enemies you're dealing with, what your allies are running, by the way, will open up new avenues of spells. Understanding the full list and what's best to use and how to collect it and actively use it in the right order is a whole process. Once you understand that though, you'll be able to just maximize the toolkit and do incredibly well. It looks like an incredibly effective class from the long list of spell options you have, and ultimately all that utility because of it. But it's going to take a while to learn all of that, so that's a pretty high skill floor to begin with. However, the rest of the kit isn't exactly complicated. The ultimate Soul Blood Song, you basically mark a target, and now when you and your allies hit it while it's affected, you get health and FP back. So it's going to be great sustain mid-fight. There's going to be plenty of familiar spells, and you do start with the basics of glintstone pebbles and arcs, which are super easy and straightforward to use too. The big downside here though, passively for the Recluse, is that it's got the lowest health pool in the game, even less health than say the Duchess, the rogue type, with 140 starting health. You absolutely will get one shot on this class, especially early, which is pretty unforgiving. Definitely learn this one while you're in a team, that's my advice. In regards to the Duchess and the Raider, I find them kind of somewhere in the middle. So Duchess is like the rogue type, right? Using the daggers. You've got the Bloodborne style dash evade, which has greater iframes, which is really nice. You've got Finale for the AoE invisibility for you and the team to get out of bad situations. The main thing here though, in terms of skill, I think, is restage. It's going to reflect the last few seconds of damage. So you want to coordinate your own burst with yourself in solo to restage that damage effectively. But if you're in a team, all the skill here is about coordinating with your team, making them hold off using their big combos, their big hits, until you have restage available. And maybe you coordinate big hits all at once and then restage it instantly. That's where a lot of the skill comes in, maximizing the DPS on this, which I don't think is that bad. On the other hand, you have the Raider, which I'm worried about in terms of initial learning of the game, but it shouldn't be too bad. Basically, Fighter's Resolve means you get to brain off, monkey, bonk enemies, and if they don't do big hits, it won't interrupt you. And the skill Retaliate basically allows you to counter an attack and then hit with your big own attack in response. So there's definitely going to be a bit of skill in the timing of that, but it seems pretty forgiving. You know, you're about to take a big hit, you throw out Retaliate to tank it on your shoulder, and then smash in response. The issue with this class in general is sustainability. The whole concept means you're going to be taking lots of chip damage over a long period. So you'll be forced to use heals just through normal gameplay. Having some kind of sustain effect, maybe through relics, maybe through the Soul Blood Song of the Recluse, this could really help the Raider out. Unfortunately for the mysterious 8th class, the Revenant, we just haven't seen anything proper. At best, we have in the trailer this glimpse of maybe the Revenant actually summoning this skeleton as one singular attack. It is said to be the kind of spirit summon or ash summon style of class, though we have seen clips of it being used directly using a scythe and Halo arc style attacks with that weapon. As this video releases, we're thinking embargo might lift, and so we might actually get some footage of this finally, and so we'll have to see how good or bad or how hard it actually is initially. But until then, we just don't know. But yeah, for now, that's my overview of what I think is going to be the best to pick up and play and learn the game with, versus what's going to be the most dangerous and you need to be self-aware about. I hope this overview, based on everything we've seen, what we played ourselves back in the network test, the recent Red Bull event, everything we could really give you, helps you feel a bit more equipped to go in. I don't want this video to discourage you playing the harder stuff. It's just to be self-aware that, you know, you're giving yourself the harder time early for the payoff later when you get good. That's your call to make. But yeah, that's it for now. I'll see you in the game with many guides to come. Until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.